Mom came in to see how we were doing. Miranda, I hope you haven't worn Humphrey out, she said. After all, this is his day off from school. He's going to be my assistant, Miranda said. That's a good idea, her mom said. But please don't make Humphrey disappear. Miranda smiled. I won't. I'm going to make AJ disappear. No, 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 I said. I was pretty sure that Miranda would get in a lot of trouble if she made AJ disappear. What would his family think? Miranda put me back in my cage and set up a new trick. In front of her was an upside-down glass and a piece of paper made into a tube. She showed us that the tube was completely open inside. Next, she held up a photo. Here's AJ, she said. This was taken at his birthday party. Miranda put the photo on the table, and now I'm going to make him disappear. She placed the paper tube over the glass so we couldn't see the glass at all. Then she put the glass on top of the photo so we couldn't see it anymore. Miranda slid the glass across the table. Presto changeo. I still couldn't see the photo because it was under the glass. She tapped the glass with her magic wand 2 times. And now you'll see. Miranda pulled the paper tube off the glass. No more AJ. I could see the glass, but the photo of AJ was gone. Miranda's mom clapped her hands. Wonderful. Now can you bring him back? Miranda nodded. She put the paper around the glass and slid it across the table. Hocus pocus, Miranda said. She tapped her wand 2 times and lifted the glass. The photo was back. Miranda was really, really, really magic. Chapter 4. The Amazing Humphrey. Excuse me. On Sunday, Miranda and I practiced most of the day. She began to include me in the act. At the beginning of the card trick, she said, my assistant, the amazing Humphrey, will now select a card. The amazing Humphrey, that name made me feel like a real magician. After you pick the card, I'll show it to the class so they can memorize what it is, she explained. Great, I squeaked. Then she did the vanishing bead act. Just before she pulled the second bead out of her pocket, she looked at me and said, Where do you think the bead has gone, Humphrey? I squeaked and she said, You're right. It's in my pocket. It was hard work, but I knew the class would love Magic Miranda's act. Monday morning was extra exciting in room 26. It was amazing to see all my friends dressed for different jobs. AJ wore his soccer uniform, and Seth wore a white jacket like a doctor. Gail had dressed like Mrs. Brisbane, and she had a gray wig on her head. I couldn't wait to see what Richie wore, because he had so much trouble deciding what he wanted to do when he grew up. To my surprise, he didn't dress like a police officer, an Olympic runner, or a chef. Instead, he wore a suit and tie. What are you going to be when you grow up, Richie? Mrs. Brisbane asked. I'm going to be a banker and have piles and piles of money, he said. Just before the bell rang, I turned to my neighbor Og. Don't worry if Miranda calls me Humphrey, I told him. That's my magician's name. Boing, boing, Og yelled, and he hopped up and down. Mrs. Brisbane began the reports right away. Stop giggling, Gail. Didn't even giggle once during her report. She explained how teachers like Mrs. Brisbane work hard to make sure that their students learn things that will help them grow and be successful. AJ explained how much practice and training went into becoming a soccer star. He also showed some great moves, kicking the ball around the room. Speak Up, Saya told us that when she grew up, she wanted to be a veterinarian. She would take care of all kinds of animals, from horses to frogs and hamsters. As always, Saya spoke softly. I would like to be a veterinarian because I love math and science, and I love animals, she said. A vet makes sick animals better and does things to help healthy animals stay healthy. Go, Saya, I squeaked. My friends all laughed. Then she walked over to Og's cage and told us things she had learned about caring for frogs. A frog that jumps a lot is a healthy frog, she said. Og jumped all around the land side of his tank. Boing, 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 boing. Everyone laughed, and so did I. I was happy, happy, happy to see that Og was healthy. The reports went on. I didn't understand everything Richie said when he explained something called interest on money, but I found his talk very interesting. Kirk told a lot of funny jokes when he talked about being a comedian. My favorite joke was when he said, "Did I tell you about the day my brother found carrots growing out of his ears?" He paused and then said, he was so surprised he'd planted radishes. When everyone stopped laughing, Kirk explained that the last part that makes you laugh is called the punchline. Seth told us he wanted to be a doctor for humans. He showed us how to take a pulse and talked about yucky things called germs. Time flew by, and it was soon time for lunch. Mrs. Brisbane let Miranda prepare her magic act while everyone was out of the room. I watched as she carefully set up a table with the black cloth. She put a toy fence around the edges to protect me. Miranda made sure that everything she needed was in her box. With her back to Mrs. Brisbane, she carefully put one of the wooden beads in her pocket. Then she and Mrs. Brisbane left to go eat lunch. Wait until you see her act, I told Og. She really is Magic Miranda. Og seemed very excited as he splashed around in the water. And then I saw it, the wooden bead. It was on the floor near the leg of the table. I couldn't believe my eyes. It must have fallen out of Miranda's pocket. She'd be terribly upset when she reached for it and it was gone. I glanced at the clock. Eek! The students would be coming back soon. Miranda's trick would be ruined without the bead, but if I hurried, maybe I could put it on her table without getting caught outside of my cage. I jiggled my lock that doesn't lock and raced past Og's tank. Boing, boing, Og said. I've got something important to do, I squeaked. I slid down the leg of the table and headed straight for the bead. I knew I'd need both paws to get to the top of Miranda's table, so I tucked the bead into my cheek pouch. It didn't taste very good, I'm sorry to squeak. Just then, the bell rang. There was no time to climb Miranda's table. I scurried back to my table and grabbed the cord hanging down from the blinds. Using all my might, I began to swing on the cord. I went higher, higher, higher until I reached the tabletop. Then I let go of the cord and landed near Og's tank. Suddenly, the door to room 26 opened and my friends rushed into the room. I dashed into my cage and pulled the door behind me. Luckily, no one saw me outside of my cage. That was a good thing, but I still had the bead in my cheek pouch, and I didn't know how to give it to Miranda without anyone else noticing. That was a bad thing. Miranda had on her black jacket and top hat and began her act. I am Magic Miranda, she said. My mind was racing as Miranda pulled a coin out of Richie's ear. How'd you do that? He asked, as my friends all laughed. But Miranda didn't tell him. Then she did the trick where the pencil stuck to her hand, and the trick where she bent the spoon. I'll tell you a secret. She didn't really bend it, but it looked as if she did. Everyone clapped. Then she took me out of my cage and put me on the table. Here is my assistant, the amazing Humphrey, she said. Everyone clapped again, but all I could think about was the bead in my cheek pouch. Magic Miranda began her card trick. When she spread the cards out and told me to pick one, I did. She asked everyone to look at the card and remember it. This time, the card had a picture of a queen and 4 red diamonds on it. And that's the same card Miranda pulled out after shuffling the cards again. Even Mrs. Brisbane was impressed with that trick. I thought she'd do the vanishing bead trick next, but instead, she announced that she would make AJ disappear. I don't believe it, he said. You'll see. Miranda took out the photo of AJ, which made everyone laugh. But my friends weren't laughing when she put the photo under the glass and made it disappear. At least it looked as if it disappeared. Everyone clapped, and AJ looked happy to see that only his picture had disappeared. Miranda had saved the bead trick for last. Miranda knew everyone would be surprised when she pulled the bead out of her pocket. But I knew that Miranda would be surprised when that bead wasn't there. She placed one bead in the cup and turned it upside down. When the bead didn't fall out of the cup, everyone gasped. Miranda reached into her pocket with her other hand. I saw the look of horror on her face when she realized the bead wasn't there. I quickly spit the bead out of my mouth. It rolled across the table and stopped right in the middle. At first, the room was silent. Then everyone began to cheer. All my friends were clearly amazed. How'd she do that? I heard Heidi ask Gail. Miranda took a bow and pointed to me. Thank you, amazing Humphrey, she said. When the class was quiet again, Mrs. Brisbane told Miranda she was a wonderful magician. But I don't think it's a good idea to put a bead in a hamster's mouth, she said. She was right about that. But I didn't, Miranda explained. I thought it was in my pocket. Humphrey's trick was true magic. At the end of the day, Miranda came over to my cage and thanked me. I'll never figure out how you got that bead, she said, but you really are amazing, Humphrey. AJ rushed up to Miranda. Those tricks were great, he said. Could you teach them to me sometime? Sure, Miranda said, as long as you don't mind learning magic from a girl. I was glad when AJ smiled and said, I guess I was wrong about girl magicians. That night, when things were quiet in room 26, I took out my little notebook and pencil and looked at my list. Jobs I could do, besides classroom pet. Family pet, cheering up hamster, hamster detective, hamster star, escape artist, report helper. Then I added something new. Hamster magician, the amazing Humphrey. You know what, Og? I squeaked to my neighbor. There are a lot of jobs a hamster like me could do. Boing, 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 he agreed. But I still think being a classroom pet is the very best job of all, I said. And I knew I was right. Well, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed reading about Humphrey's mixed up magic trick. And I look forward to reading to you again soon.